Hey everybody, welcome back again to the Radical Workplace. I'm Shale Risman, and with me once again is Mel Duncan, my co-host. Hi Mel.
Hello. Hi Shale.
We had a great conversation. I'm so thrilled about this podcast, this episode, because we put together a lot of great people in it that have all been on Canada's best places to work.
Yep.
And that is not an easy feat. I believe we're the only podcast that has had a panel of people together
all
from the
great place to work.
all from the best places to work. So,
Exactly.
We got some great information, some great resources and books that are motivating people. We talked about the things that work so well within our own organizations that keep our people engaged, and finally we have we reached a really serious understanding of the business justification behind employee engagement and why it's good for your business to do it. So I'm really looking forward to it. Let's not even hesitate. Let's just go right on with it. This is our episode on great places to work.
All right.
No further ado. Started with me today is Kyle Paterson. Kyle is the director of culture and business development for Bryson Insurance in Ajax, Ontario. Hey, Kyle.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's awesome. Also here is Ray Minato, who's the CEO of Inertia Engineering. Greetings, Ray.
Good afternoon, Shale, and everyone else. Good
to see you. Full disclosure, Ray is actually the #1 great place to work in Canada for small businesses. So we're going to very good, Kyle. We're just going to give him a little bit of applause for that. And as I said in our little preamble before we went live, I'm sure there's a little bit of envy, of great place to work envy here, because we all tried to get on that list and tried to get to be #1. But he did it. So we're going to spend the rest of the year trying to knock him off there, knock him down to #2. Anyway, and finally, last but certainly not least, we have Kumar Erramilli, who is the CTO of ACTO, which is a life sciences and healthcare education software system. And greetings, Kumar. Thanks for being here with us.
Hello, everyone. Ray and team, thank you so much. And Shale, thanks for having me here.
Oh, it's like I said, it's a pleasure to have everybody here. So we're just going to get down to brass tacks on this. If we can, just we're gonna go around in circle, kind of introduce ourselves, talk about how long we've been on the great places to work, and then we're going to jump right in. So I'll start. Don't make it easier for everybody. Everyone knows who I am. I'm Shale Risman. I'm CEO of Pace Technical since way longer than I care to admit. It's going on about 20 years, which is great. And we are a managed service company for small and mid-sized businesses. We provide end-to-end IT strategy, proactive services, and reactive services to our client base. And we've been doing this for a very long time, and we have been a great place to work since 2016. And obviously it's one of the things we are definitely the most proud of. Kyle, talk about Bryson.
Yeah, fantastic. So Bryson is a P&C, primarily property and casualty insurance brokerage. All your home and auto and commercial insurance needs. We do have a life division as well for group benefits. But we've actually been celebrating our 40th year in business this year. And, it's funny to have this conversation because we are, a local community insurance brokerage. And we've just kind of expanded as an organization, and now we serve clients across the country. But we're still like that sort of small family type feel within our brokerage channel. And we've been on the Great Place to Work list for I think 5 years too. We might have came in at the same time. And we operate more like a boutique and team type of atmosphere, and we really specialize on that commercial side.
I really I appreciate that. I really love the fact that you brought up boutique, because I think that's where we're going to, that'll be a topic that some people are really going to want to talk about here. It kind of removes great place to work people who really do it right from kind of looking at them as a corporation rather than a kind of grassroots organization. So I'm looking forward to that. Ray, talk about Inertia.
Yeah, so I've been leading Inertia for about 17 years now. And, we help companies, I call it, say, design and manufacture their dreams. So we help them figure out what kind of innovative products the world needs. We design them and then we manufacture them. And that could be anything from medical devices, sports wearables, to autonomous guided mobile robotics or internet connected kitchen appliances. So it's quite a diverse range of things. And I believe this is our third year on the best place to work list.
Oh, that is definitely an achievement. Well done, and congrats again. Kumar, talk about ACTO.
So ACTO, Shale, like you said, is an omni-channel system of education and engagement for life sciences companies. So our prime focus is around helping pharma and med device companies get their life-saving technologies out in the market more efficiently and effectively. We were introduced to Great Place of Work in 2018. And since then, we've been part of it, and we're super proud to be part of the Great Places to Work. I think it's a phenomenal initiative, and we're every year we look forward to having that in our PR campaign every time we launch that out. So that's a little bit of an ACTO.
That's awesome, and you guys are moving. You're in serious growth mode. Lots of stuff happening for you. Obviously a really great place to be as far as the industry goes now, and I'm sure that your employee engagement probably adds a lot to that, and certainly we'll be talking to that. Well, let's get started. For me, I started with a very traditional business background. Actually, not a traditional business background, but a view on business that was very traditional. That is, you put a product out there, you sell it for a good margin, you take the profit in, and you try and grow the business that way. And you have people, and you hire them to help you do that task. And as you try and grow, you continue to focus on the profitability, on the business numbers, on all of these things. And I mean, certainly 50 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever, it worked. And that was the ideology that most people used. But as we get more into, the online environments, and we dig ourselves into technology more, and frankly, you've got generations that, past Generation X, like millennials and forward, that are simply not engaged in the old traditional ways of doing business. So I'm making the presumption that most of us have started in the same way with those ideas because we weren't told anything differently. What was the moment, or was there a kind of epiphany that you guys received at some point in your careers that clicked into you and said, you know what, maybe if we focused on the happiness and the satisfaction of our employees, we wouldn't be seeing the kind of challenges that we're seeing in our environments? Is there a singular moment like that has happened for any of you? Kumar, can you comment on that?
Yeah, no. Because obviously when we started off, we were a startup, and we had our core team of engineers and business folks. We were on the grind, working 16 hours a week, doing the usual, and bending the spoon and changing people's mindset around how to establish that work culture. As we scaled, as we hit the 30 mark, we soon realized that, look, people have lives. It's not just about ACTO. People actually have lives. They need to focus on their families. They need to focus on their household, as well as ACTO. So those 16-hour days, that expectation soon had to change, Shale. So about 30 mark was when we kind of had that epiphany. And as we hit 50, and then as we hit 60, and as we hit the 100 mark, soon evolved into us focusing on our work culture and having a culture around our people, rather than just, thinking of it as building just, blocks of teams and then rallying them up against customer objectives or just, what needs to happen as a project, right? So as we hit these milestones, as we scale the number of people, every single time we had to pivot our strategy around HR and people to bring about a work culture and what it actually means to be part of an ACTO team. So that's what I would say were our moment of epiphanies or kind of
So
like
you when you got to about 30 people is what you're saying, that's where it kicked in. And yeah, and it kicked in hard, obviously, because you guys have really focused on that part of it now. And you come from a very a different place than people like Kyle, myself, and Ray. Ray runs his company. Kyle is actually in charge of the culture of his company, and I run my company. You are the CTO. You're probably the last person that people expect to kind of, adopt this. I've heard it referred to in the past, airy-fairy theory of employee engagement. So talk to me about that. What you're like a unicorn in this industry. You tell me why you are so so engaged in this part of it with your team.
Absolutely. And, this is just a moment of my humble brag. That's what makes me.
I like how you identify it first. I'm about to humble brag, and then I go with it. Right.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Look, I believe that every SaaS company, what are you selling? You're selling your software, right? So product engineering organization is the largest team. And if a CTO or a CPO who's leading their organization does not focus on people, then soon you'll start realizing that gap in basically the delivery as well as the expectations. So hence, because I lead the largest team in our company, I need to be people focused. And I soon realized that, especially even my past experiences with my previous startups kind of helped me arrive at that conclusion. And look, at the end of the day, that product engineering folks, you find a lot of introverts, and it's harder for you to get them to engage rather than like on the sales side where they're outgoing, outspoken, and they're always talking on the phone. So I needed to make that extra effort, go out there and actually be that people's person. And last but not least, I actually try to, I'm a big believer in taking feedback that we get from the customers to the engineering directly. And I try to just be that medium that carries across. So all these points kind of like, brought me to be that people's person, Shail, and, work very closely with our people team and HR team to build that culture and keep our folks engaged and retain the talent.
Well, that is really impressive because, like I said, it's more of a challenge for you. Like you said, you're engaged with people who aren't necessarily, they're introverts. They don't, it's like it's been said to me in the past. It's like watching, and that's exactly what it is. It's difficult for a technical person to kind of get their heads wrapped around here. So that's why I wanted to ask you that question, Ray. You must have had some epiphany, for lack of a better word, at some point that would turn the company around. Even though you've only been doing this for 3 years, you're sitting at number 1. So you must have turned on a dime at some point.
Well, maybe my epiphany came long before actually I even started the company, because I had worked for a number of companies before starting my company, and many successful companies by all accounts, but the employee journey was not, I would say, that nurturing, and was could be quite toxic at times. And when I was thinking about, in my last job, what am I going to do next? And I thought about that for a couple of years, because I thought I don't want to go into another company, and that's what prompted me to start my company. And I just knew I wanted to do something different. I didn't even know what that sort of meant or what it looked like, but I knew I wanted to do it different. And so starting it, that was one thing. Figuring out how to run a business, that's another thing. Figuring out how to create an organization, that was another thing. And it's been small piece by piece over the years. Kind of figure out how, it's one thing to want to do it and have the mindset, but to actually know how to do it took a long time to get there. And so there was no big turnaround for us. It was just a slow, gradual marathon. I call it a marathon. To get there. And so we knew, we thought I think we're doing the right things, we're trying hard and we're getting some feedback, but let's try to get some external validation and just see where we're at. And so we thought, we should enter one of these, these awards things and see what happens. And 3 years ago we entered and we came in 16th, and we're like, wow, that's awesome. And so from there, we're like, you know what? We have a 5-year goal. We want to be top 3 in 5 years. And then, so the 3rd year in, everyone's jaw dropped on the floor this year. We thought they forgot us. They forgot us. Like, we're not on the list. And then all of a sudden, number 1, we're like, I couldn't believe it. So we were
Yeah, it's amazing. It's an amazing achievement. I know we were the same way. We ended up at number 6, and actually Mel and I were taping a podcast and trying to watch, and we're like, they forgot about us. We didn't even make the list. And so I know that. So this is interesting. So you started the company. It wasn't a turn on a dime like Kumar was talking about, or like I was kind of trying to figure out. You actually started out not even with a path, but with knowing that you wanted to engage your employees. You wanted to work in a place. You wanted to be able to come to work every day and be happy, and you wanted your employees to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a slow learning process for you. Interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
Absolutely. I want to create a place where I wanted to work at.
Right.
And, I think it started from, I always knew that, the customer experience was something that we wanted to focus on, especially in a technical environment, which is just like Kumar, is an extremely challenging combination of things when you have engineers and designers trying to, deliver a great customer experience. And I knew that to deliver a great customer experience, you have to have great people and treat them well, because if you don't have great people and they don't work in a great place, how do you expect to get that?
Yeah. Kyle, what about you? Did it start for you the same way, kind of, on a slow burn up, or did you just have the realization that this is the way it needed to be?
So just to be clear too, I've been with Bryson for 5 years, and I was actually pitching them a different product, and at the time when I first met the team. And so what was unique about it was that, usually just one key decision maker is at that meeting around that boardroom, but it was the entire management team, and they all had questions, and they were all coming with something. And, that was a brand new experience for me, where there was just something different about this company already and this culture already. And it kind of left that lingering sort of thought in my head. And Tracy, actually, our president, offered me a position leaving that conversation. And, I never wanted to be in the world of insurance. And so I was like, heck no. But when I left, I just couldn't get it out of my head that this was a different kind of local great business to work for. And so that was it for me, because previous to that, nothing wrong with previous workplaces, I want to be clear, but it was really being treated more like a resource, like something to get production out of, more than something different, right? And so that's really where my journey with Bryson began. And I was already interested in, collaborating and like building a community environment. And so these two kind of moments just kind of came at the perfect time and blossomed into the role that I now have today.
Very cool. And I love the fact that you brought up that, treating people as a resource to get productivity out of, at a very base level. And, that is the, I guess, employee engagement 101, what not to do. And, at the end of the day, we all want to work at a place that we matter in some way. And I think that is where we start to see a lot of the engagement stuff start happening, because really, when you are engaging your workforce, you are essentially treating them with dignity. You're treating them as the engine that runs your company. It's not an antagonistic relationship like it is with a lot of companies, where you've got management on one side and you've got the working staff on the other, and they're constantly clashing because they've got to reach these numbers, and I'm not pushing these people hard enough. And you know what I mean? And that's where the issue starts. So when you say, you wanted to get away from that, just using your, for lack of a better term, people as just a resource to maximize their productivity. I totally get that. For me, I know exactly when it happened for me. And it happened before PACE, where I was very young. I was probably about 21 or 22. So it was kind of like late 80s, early 90s. And I was working at an overnight camp, and I was director of music and theater. And, my job essentially was to corral 400 kids and put on 5 productions in a period of 6 weeks. And so I had a staff of people that would do this. And so I really, wanted to make sure it worked out great. I would make sure, I had made sure everybody knew exactly what I wanted. Everyone knew exactly what I wanted them to do. And I made sure that my hands were in everything. and to make sure that it was going to turn out great, because I didn't obviously want to lose my job. And what happened at the end of this season, we did the shows turned out good. At the end of the season, there's a self-evaluation that you would do at this camp. And I did my self-evaluation, and my staff did the evaluation of me. And what happened was, out of the 3 staff, all of them said they wouldn't want to work with me again. And the reason they said they wouldn't want to work with me, they didn't actually say, I shouldn't say that they said a reason. They just said, if you had the opportunity, would you work with the director again? And the answer was no. And I was completely taken aback by that, because I thought I was giving them all the information they needed. I was directing it properly. I was making sure that the beginning was looking like the middle was looking like the end. And, I remember late at night thinking about this. Why do these people not want to work with me? And it occurred to me as I started talking about it that I kept saying the word I. I wanted to do this. I did this. I did this. I did this. And then we got the product that we deserved. And not once in that sentence did I ever say, my team did this. My team put this together. My team, we produced this. And that was the real epiphany for me, is that I had to essentially get out of my own way and let this team of people, who are great people, do the job they need to do. Now, I was young and stupid, and, it took me a lot longer than that to figure out a way to execute that within the organization itself when I came to Pace. But as the time went on, and just like Ray was saying, I got better at it. I did more reading. I kept putting myself in the place of the people that were working for me. And I realized that if I want to work in a place, like Ray had said as well, that that I want to come to work every day and be happy, I have to treat everybody like I treat myself. And that's where it kind of started going. That's where you started. And really, it's just empathy and that kind of stuff that actually pushes this in the right direction. So we all had kind of different places that we started in, but it took us down the same road. I guess, the one thing, and I brought this up before, that had been brought to my attention when we were about to do this podcast, is that, the skeptical people out there, skeptical business owners, are like, that's a really airy-fairy concept, this employee engagement. And, there's money that needs to be spent. And there's, you've got to have a business justification for the expense that it's going to cost you. Because we all know that there's money that needs to be spent in keeping your employees engaged. So for those skeptics out there, we want to ask the question to our panel here, what are the business justifications? Even one that occurs to you now for employee engagement, for actively engaging your employees. This is the thing that people want to know, and this is the way that we're going to make the change, is to going to the traditional business owners and saying, you need to do it differently because here's the business justification. I will say this, that there was a recent Gallup poll that says 70% of employees that work in North America specifically are not happy in their job. 70% don't feel engaged. They don't feel appreciated because they need to take a paycheck home. That's a profound issue. And it's got to have an effect on the business. So let's start with Ray on this. Ray, what do you think? What would be the business justification that you have seen for keeping your employees engaged?
Well, like I mentioned, I mean, what I've described our company as sometimes as or an alternative way to describe it is like, we're a customer service company. We just happen to design and engineer and manufacture things. And that really kind of hits home of like, what we're here to do is deliver an outstanding customer experience. And, if my team's not satisfied, engaged, fulfilled, then how's that going to happen, right? If they hate their job, customers will feel that. They will, they'll feel it, and they will know it in the delivery of the work product. So it's a pretty direct. I feel it's a pretty direct connection for my business, and and as a result, we check with our customers, throughout projects. How's it going? Give us a rating. Where are you at? And those are the two key metrics in our company: is customer net promoter and employee net promoter. And those things are kind of go lot. They should be kind of lockstep, the same range, high.
So you engage your employees with that stuff as well, or with kind of surveys about how they think the project is going, or is it just with the client base?
Actually, they'll do it. So we practice an agile project management methodology, and so they do retrospectives after each sprint, and they'll gauge themselves on how did that last sprint go? Did we execute well? That kind of thing. And then as a company, we do it as a company whole, but the teams will do it individually as well, just so they can kind of manage themselves.
I'm Michael Shagru, president of Pace Technical. For over 20 years, we've been the leader in managed and co-managed IT for businesses in the GTA. If you want a proactive, process-driven approach to IT, we can help. Our complete care service eliminates issues and gets businesses the most out of their IT investments. We provide help desk support for quick response when you have issues, proactive maintenance to keep systems running, enterprise-grade security to keep you safe, and IT strategy for better business decisions. Book a free 20-minute IT gauge at pacetechnical.com today.
For me, that's the indicator right there, is that it's not just about the NPS score, which we do too, and I'm sure that all the other people on this panel do, because you have to kind of keep your clients engaged. But I think even more importantly, like we were just discussing, how the employee thinks the process has gone. That's where you're going to get the juice from the orange, I think, is just to go, okay, if they're not thinking this is working, obviously it's not working. We need to try and do it a different way. So that's great. Kyle, what about you? What would be the business justifications? Tracy, your president, hired you into this position, so she obviously thinks it's incredibly important. So what do you think those business justifications are?
Yeah, it's funny because it is quite the expense, right? And Ray, I would almost say too, it's like employee net promoter score would almost be a leading indicator of client net promoter score. Mm-hmm. And it was funny too, because when I was thinking of Ray and Kumar's answers, I was sure they were going to give us some good technical data-driven answers, being an engineer and a technical guru. So I'm curious to see what Kumar says. And because really, Ray, you went to something that's much more intuitive and feelings-based, that it trickles down through the organization into the client experience, which is beautiful to hear from an engineer perspective. I think what Ray's pointing at is one big thing is that the team's ability to collaborate together, to have that autonomy and the freedom to work together inside of a structure, but with the freedom to also dance and utilize what their skill set is and add their own flavor, is then creates the entire experience for then the client at the end of the day. Like we can create much more complicated solutions for clients than we could before. And because the team gel together to find those solutions versus them all working independently with each other. So that is one big thing. Like we've been able to level up as an organization into the types of clients we can serve. And then you get into the normal things, right? Like the retention, but also the people's willingness to go above and beyond what their job description states is obviously in that as well. And then just the overall quality of the delivery of the work that we're doing is better, because everybody wants to make sure that what's coming out is a representation of who we are as a company and who we are as a culture. So all of these things aren't necessarily going to be things that show up tomorrow, but they show up down the road as they get a chance to kind of fester inside and grow in the organization.
That is a great point. You made a great point about them having kind of their skin in the game, which doesn't happen if they're not engaged. So they start when you get bad feedback or feedback that you're not happy with from the client base, or you're dealing with an issue. You're not, we run a help desk. This happens all the time. When you're dealing with an issue, you want to be able, an engaged team takes that extra step always, because they know it reflects on the team as a whole. The unengaged team does the bare minimum always, and then steps back. So that was a great point as far as I'm concerned, is about what we call bringing value beyond the fix. It's one of our values. It's one of those things that you absolutely have to do, and you can't force people to do that. That is all about engaging them in the company and making them an active heartbeat in the company. So kudos to you on that one.
Quick to that too, and I apologize to all of our other clients who have not received flowers, but we just got a new client, and I heard after the fact that a team member delivered them a bouquet of flowers because they were in our area, and that client was just moved, like really touched and moved, and it's been great, like as a business return that happened, but it wasn't the reason for it.
Yeah, and that's it. It's about engagement. Kumar.
Yeah, I'm going to share 2 points. So one on the founders side. So we had just speaking of epiphanies, when we, in screen time, it also shows you who you speak to the most. I don't know if you guys realize that. So when we saw our screen times, I saw that the most time that I actually speak to are my colleagues in a week, and that was another moment of epiphany where we're saying, okay, most of the team members that work at ACTO are actually spending more time at ACTO than anywhere else. So that was a moment of truth for us where we said, well, then we need to make sure that they're actually having the best time of their lives and they're in here to leave a legacy, right? So that was what we were thriving for as an organization. And on the business front, Shale, to your question, look, at the end of the day, us being in the life sciences industry means that we're looking to directly impact people's lives, right? So our biggest driver was that, helping these life-saving technologies effectively go to the market gives the opportunities for every single one that works at ACTO to directly change patient outcomes or directly change someone's, just pretty much their entire life. And when COVID happened, that was the biggest moment of truth for us. How there was this notion of big pharma just being money grabbers, all this. But then when the world came to a halt, everyone was looking at big pharma and saying, save our lives, right? So
help us. Yeah.
Help us. So 3 out of the 5 big pharma are actually our clients, our biggest vaccine manufacturers in the world. And that was it. That was the moment of truth for the employees when they realized that the things that they do day to day actually change people's lives in reality, in the world. And that was the connect where they connected the dots and said, this is it. ACTO is truly changing lives. And that's where we saw the engagement. To Kyle's point, they just started working late nights, weekends, whatever that is, right? They had that autonomy to kind of really drive that pull through. And to Ray's point, that's where they started engaging with the customers so much that the customers started loving what ACTO was doing, and ACTO was loving what the customers are producing at the end of the day. So, thanks to us being in this life sciences industry and space, and we're so proud to be in that space and change the notion on how people think about life sciences sector.
Absolutely, and you brought up a couple of great points in there. One specifically is the fact that your company has very defined mission statement, and values, vision and values that you work around. So does PACE, and I would hesitate, and I actually wouldn't hesitate because I know that Ray runs the company the same way, and I know that Bryson runs the company the same way because I have actively involved in those companies. So for me, that is a huge point. The fact that people know why they're there.
Yes.
And they understand how they impact not just their own jobs, but other people's jobs. And then on top of that, they understand how they impact the company and the profitability and the success of the company. And once you start engaging people in those things, even if it's on a very kind of limited detail basis, once they see how they affect the bottom line, all of a sudden, like you said, Kumar, light goes off.
Yes.
I got to do it this way. I've got to be able to do this. And certainly in my experience, engaged employees, this is what I found in running PACE. Engaged employees without being pushed, positively promote your product. They just are so invested in the service and what it does for people. And again, to Kumar's point, that they're changing people's lives on a daily basis. Once they feel that way, they don't stop talking about you. And if they don't stop talking about you, the people that know them and know how happy they are at work don't start talking about it. And before you know it, that's where the business starts coming in. It's a huge business justification, and on the other hand, not on the other hand, but the other thing that I've certainly noticed in the engagement part of it, besides the fact that profitability 100% increased, not 100%, but it definitely had a positive impact on it when we started doing this. So put that to the side. My team is so innovative and autocratic and of their effect on our end product, that they are constantly creating new ways for us to deliver it better. And when we get challenging feedback, they want to know it immediately, and they want to know what they can change in order to do it. It's not about how other people can change. It's about how they can change. And I guess for me, it came from Simon Sinek from Start With Why. And knowing why they're doing what they do is a big deal for people who've never read business books or anything like that before. It's such an elemental concept. So I see this happening every day, and this is, for me, it's just validation, because we're all doing the same thing. We're all ending up in the same place. So we brought up Simon Sinek. What are you guys reading? What is it that is telling us and guiding us in this direction? Kumar?
Yeah, I recently read a book by Hastings, who is the founder of Netflix.
Right.
There's actually, I don't know if you followed the story, but he has a pretty radical way, no puns intended, of running Netflix. It's very result oriented, result driven company. And over the years, he succeeded building a result driven organization, and it worked for him. And I read him recently and figured out the way that he has structured some of the organization, and some of the key things that he talks about is employee maturity, how an employee matures on their role over time. And at ACTO as well, we kind of talk about this with our team members, where we give them the autonomy to be project managers. At the end of the day, no matter at what level you are in the company, we want them to own the micro decisions that they make on a day-to-day basis. We want to give them the autonomy to own that. And that's what it comes down to, right? For a lot of the people, look, they can work at Facebook, Google, Shopify. But then they choose to work at ACTO. Why? Because they want to leave that legacy. They want to leave an impact. And to your point, Shail, the feedback reaches to them directly in a small scale organization compared to a large one. So, effectively making decisions, being their own project managers, being their own decision owners, puts that accountability and onus on them. And at the same time, the gratitude and it's such an instant gratification for them when it does come through, right? So that's what we've been focusing on lately. And, the Hastings book has been pretty revolutionary in my thought process.
It's a great point. And, I'm just going to put not to put too fine a point on it, but it's about micromanagement. That's certainly how I ran the company at the beginning. Yeah. Until I realized that, obviously we all realize that at some point as a company leader that you can't do that. You're getting too big. And you actually, when you enable your team to make their own decisions and to stand behind those decisions and be accountable to those decisions, suddenly they are so much more invested instead of having to go and ask permission all the time. Yep. And, you give them, for us, giving people the ability to make mistakes once.
Absolutely.
And that's a huge thing when you're dealing with, for instance, a support desk. It's something, we want them to be innovative. We want them to kind of deploy things quickly and get the right fix in there at the right time. But we also want to be able to engage, to have them figure out, is this the best solution? Can I do something here that will not just band-aid the issue, but will fix the issue down the road? So, but in order to do that, there's some risk, and they need to take that risk, and I need to give them permission to take that risk. And that's where we saw, like, speaking to what you said, Kumar, that kind of enablement to the team is massive. And they when they start taking responsibility for their own destiny, that's what we call it, taking responsibility for their own destiny.
One thing that we did well also was making sure that the people were in the right roles, ensuring that, you know, that's what really engages them. If they're not in the right role and we're kind of force fitting, then that's where you start losing their engagement. To your point, like that survey showing 70% being not satisfied, because I think they're not in the right roles. And as a founder, we started realizing that, look, if there is no fit, then we rather say fast no and, like, you know, make a change rather than try to just make it work and, like, you know, we're not satisfied on both fronts. That's the piece that really, that shift in thinking for us led to a lot of more engagement on the employee side, where they're connected to their roles, they have clear idea of what they're doing and what kind of impact they're adding to the company.
Yeah.
And really helped us, increase our engagement.
All right, I got the Hastings book on my list, so I'm ready for that one. Ray, what are you reading?
Well, as it pertains to maybe this topic, I'm going to fall back to some classics that sort of maybe are a bit more, been more formative and what we've, kind of built the foundations of the company on. And one of them is called Who. It's with respect to hiring. It's based on Topgrading. And if, I've gone through some training for that, and also read the book and things like that. And it's people, always say, you got to hire good people. And it's like, well, thanks. That's not really great advice.
No, it's terrible advice.
How do you hire good people? Good people? And it really starts there, right? It was all about the people. And there's so much nuance to interviewing and hiring. I think people don't give it as much credit as it needs. And it's really a powerful method. Another one is something that's, I would say, to be able to build a foundation framework and a rhythm in the business for how you do things helps people, just have some, process method and some certainty, like how they go about doing things, how to run a company, and Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, which was mastering Rockefeller habits before that. But just, having the meeting cadences, the business planning, breaking things down to, financial strategy,
one-page plan,
that kind of stuff. Yeah, right. Really building, and we don't follow that to a T because it is pretty exhaustive, but just, having those kind of structured approaches. I'm an engineer, so it really speaks to me. But,
exactly.
But if you can give people, a framework to work within, I think that really helps, people know what they're there to do and know how things work, and helps towards their happiness. People just want to know what good people want to know what the target is, and they'll go for it.
Right. And you found the good people. I mean, and that's one thing actually we didn't touch on too much, which is a huge business justification, is retention.
Yeah.
Right? People are happy if you've made them happy. If they're happy working for you, if they're engaged in their job, they don't leave. And we're in this place right now in this industry that has 0%, literally 0% unemployment in technology. Any one of the guys that work on my team can get hired by an enterprise system, and they can make and we pay very competitively, higher than most MSPs. But they can get, enterprise will hire them, but they will sit at a desk. They won't matter. They'll have a number and they'll wait for stuff to break. And that is what their job is going to be. They stay with Pace because of the way that they are engaged with the company itself. So when I go to a peer meeting, which we do, I have a phone call weekly, and we go 4 times a year to this huge peer meeting in Philadelphia, and I listen to these people talk about the problems that they are having with hiring the right people for the right jobs, and seeing that Pace does not have those issues. The people that have left, we've asked them to leave in the past 2 years. And, even though there's a ton of opportunities out there, people just aren't leaving. And, I'm going to knock wood when I say that, but I know why that is. And that's just like, speaking to what Ray has said, it's getting the right people and it's treating them properly. So, and that's just a basic justification for why employee engagement is so necessary. These peer groups that I sat at, I was like, guys, seriously, I hear you all complaining about this. I hear you all complaining about your clients not being happy. I hear you all complaining that people are leaving your companies. You can fix it. You could ramp up your hiring. You could read every book in the world. You could hire recruiters. You could do all of these things. Go ahead. But if you fix your employee engagement, all of that goes away. And I'm not telling you that because it's an airy-fairy thing. I'm telling you because I'm here, and I know that that's the way it is. So I've got to make a note of that book too. The first one you said, Who? Because I've heard about that. I've just never read it. Kyle, what do you got? What's inspired you?
For those who are listening and not watching, Shaw is so passionate that he keeps smashing around his microphone.
I know. I keep smashing my microphone. Is it making a noise? Because I can't hear it making a noise.
No, it's not making a noise.
Okay.
No, it's just purely passion coming through. So yeah, Ray, scaling up, just moving to a virtual work environment and having some form of meeting rhythm that works for an organization is something that we've really taken away from that book. The book that I personally kind of built my original foundation from was an Everyone Culture. It's a book out of Harvard. A couple of professors from Harvard did that, and it was about building a deliberately developmental organization. But really, it's about who is coming to work and how do they show up, in the sense of do people have to come in and kind of hide themselves, hide those vulnerabilities, hide their weaknesses, hide the things that they kind of are worried about, the things that they think might get them fired, or can they come in and be expressed and be themselves and be free? And so that was kind of the cornerstone of the book. And so, I mean, that's my answer in a nutshell. But then we've, utilized and evolved tools like the Kolbe assessment. If anybody uses that, it's really about how you do things. And what we discovered going through these exercises is that, people think they might be, I'm bad, right? That's my language. I'm bad at creating a structure. If somebody, was to say, here, create a process to do something, A to Z, that is something that I could do, but it would probably take me a long time. I'd be miserable and I would fall asleep many times over, and I'd make some errors as I go. And so I always had it that I was bad at it, but really it's just not how I naturally would do something, how I would naturally solve a problem. So similar to what Kumar's sharing about getting people in the right seats, doing the right things, like doing the things that actually empower them and lift them up, is that. And so instead, we deploy our team or put teams together that fit who they are and fit what they naturally like to do, out of something like the Kolbe. But the Everyone Culture is really my foundational book, and then things all kind of built from there.
Very cool. That's another one, obviously, I have to hit. For us, the game changer for me, as Kyle was saying, the foundational book would have been a book called Getting Naked. And I know it sounds weird, but it's a book called Getting Naked by a gentleman named Patrick Lencioni. Lencioni is, as far as I'm concerned, the absolute guru on employee engagement. He has written, famous books like, The Ideal Team Player, or How to Eliminate Silos in Your Business, and The Truth About Employee Engagement. He's written like 10 or 11 books. All of them are very short. They're about 3-hour reads. They're made for executives, done in the manner of fables. So they actually take the elements of the stuff he's talking about and put them into a real life business situation so that you can see it as an example. And Getting Naked essentially had 3 big themes to it. It was truth and talking truth to your client base as well as to your employees. It was vulnerability. It was ensuring that people understand that you are not perfect, and even though they may have certain expectations of what you're going to deliver, there are limitations. And transparency and communication, something else that we haven't even talked about. is that your communication is so key to engagement, not just to the, we're so good at it with clients, or we try to be. It's a hard thing to do, but we always get feedback as PACE that we are really good at communicating things back and forth. There's always things that kind of drop off a little bit, little instances, but in general, we are really good at it. What we had to get better at is communicating with the employees. And so that's what Lencioni, and I would definitely, people who are regular listeners already know how I feel about Pat Lencioni. Go to Amazon and buy every single one of his books and get it. I've made Getting Naked essentially a mandatory read for our certainly for our management team, so that they have an understanding of it. But for me, it is, like I said before, Simon Sinek, Start With Why was a huge game changer for us, and anything by Pat Lencioni. And certainly, if anyone has questions about that, please just email Mel, and she'll be able to provide you with those titles and links to Amazon. And for any of these titles in here, we'll get
The
make sure
episode
those are
comes
posted.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put all those links in at the end of the episode, so they'll be able to find it and buy it really easily.
Awesome. And I think that, obviously we've got to tie it up now, because I could talk about this forever, but we're going to be in trouble because all of us have other things that we need to do. But let's say that we've got people out there, and we obviously do now, that who are listening to this because they want to make this change, because they've heard about it and they want to start engaging their organization. What are the key elements that you guys recommend to start with, or the key elements that you have to start thinking about in order to do this properly? Kyle?
Yeah, so my answer is going to be a bit abstract, but it's my style. So if anybody's listening who has a similar style to me, it will work maybe for you. But really, it's a start by listening, and listening to all of the different conversations. Like, an organization's a network of conversations. You have an organizational chart, but then how we actually go about interacting with each other is really, in essence, the culture. And picking on listening to all of that stuff that's going on without adding your own, this is the hard part, being aware of your own point of view that you're listening it through, like your own lens. And then starting really, like, just hearing where you're currently at today. What are people saying about each other? What are they saying about the clients? What are they saying about the company? Like, what kind of conversations are currently happening? And that kind of would give you sort of an abstract baseline to say where your company is today. And then if it was a blank canvas, like, what would you want to paint on it? Like, where do you want, like, what conversations do you want to have happening in your organization? And then, then you can start seeing what's missing between those two places, and then start working on that. So that's abstract.
That's actually great. It's not that abstract.
Okay.
Starting with a blank canvas and asking questions is the only play. It's one of the key things we do, and we continuously do it. Certainly, we have a survey, a one-question survey that goes out every 2 weeks, different questions to the staff, asking different things, and making sure that we have our ear to the ground. That's like I said, I don't think this is just an abstract thought thing. I think you're as linear. That's as linear as it gets. So,
well, and I'm always seeking that. Like, whenever I'm talking to team members, I'm always asking feedback, and I get caught for being overly transparent, right? Like, I was even talking to someone today, and I was like, hey, I'm going on this podcast. What would you say makes us a radical organization, right? And this team member gave me a beautiful answer. It actually, like, touched me, and I called up her manager to let her know about it too, because it was just such a moving answer. And but yeah, I'm always.
Are you just going to keep it to yourself, or are you going to let us know what it was?
Oh yeah, well, she said in essence, she said that we enable people, like, we enable. And so I was like, wow, a whole new way of looking at things. And then we give people the agency to actually go about deploying as they see fit to do their work. And then we provide freedom and flexibility, but then there's also managers or directors that understand the team member and the employee and get into their world and their life, and then, give them the space to live their life while still, giving them the flexibility to deliver on what they say they're going to deliver on. So it was just this beautiful, holistic answer that I was like, I wish I was recording it, because it's just captured perfect in a nutshell.
But it's true. We just had a conversation about it here on the podcast, right? About enabling people to be able to manage their own destiny
Yeah.
on their own schedule. It's just a huge thing. Kumar, what about you? What would be the key elements that you would kind of lay your hat on for people who are starting?
There's three things, but before I go there, because Mel is going to put down the list, the name of the book is called No Rules Rules. That's by John Hastings, and very good book. Highly recommend that. Also, another book that I read, which I'm a big follower of Obama, so his book, A Promised Land, talks about a lot of the leadership and commander's intent. I love that. Coming back to your question, Shale, I think the 3 points, number one is don't take culture and your team for granted. Just because they're getting paycheck and they're on the payroll doesn't necessarily mean that, you overlook that fact. So at least spending time as a leader to think about culture and to think about what you're doing with your company is number one. And that, I think a lot of people like miss the ball right there is,
Right.
oh yeah, like, I'll let HR take care of this. I'll let these people take care of this. But no, it's you are talking to them on a day-to-day as a manager or leader. You should be. So that's number one. Number two, like I said previously as well, is giving them the autonomy to make micro decisions. Every single one, whether that's an engineer at the front line or it's a director or VP at that level, everyone is making effective decisions on a day-to-day basis, and they need to be given the autonomy to own that decision and accountability. And that's where they feel like they're making a change, causing an impact. And last but not least, I am a big believer of having right people in the right roles. And look, if it's just not working out, and I think you need to make a decision, and that's where the commander's intent making that effective decision comes into play. So having right people in the right roles is a very, very game changer, in my opinion. And again, a lot of people overlook that fact. They try to say, oh, let me try and see if this can work out, right? As you're scaling and as you're moving at a rapid pace, you'll soon start realizing that, it's just not as simple as let's try and see if someone can upskill themselves into a job. And like, there's so much of on-the-job learning, and I think they'll fit in. So that's a notion where like a lot of the startups need to get out of, and like they need to make the right decision and move fast on that.
Great point. Great point. Did someone say something there? Sorry. I thought someone was talking. All right. Ray.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that's been said already, and I'll add, one thing that really helped us is just getting that constant feedback from the team, anonymous constant feedback to know where we need to improve things, whether it's feedback frequency or relationships with managers. So get yourself set up with something like that. Just it's like I said earlier, it's nice to want to do something and it's nice to try things, but if you don't have that feedback loop, that it takes a long time to really understand where you're going. And the other thing is just I use the word communication. That's a pretty big, broad word, but being operating in a very open, forthcoming, transparent way, not just to be not withholding stuff, but being proactively communicating. We share, especially through COVID, we stepped that up quite a bit just to say, hey, here's the situation, folks. So far so good. All our customers are okay. We got lots of cash in the bank, so don't worry about anything. But hey, 6 months from now, we're not sure what's going to happen, honestly. But here's what we're doing. We're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. And it was just like 100%, radical candor of like, I think if you can share people the context of, what the company's going through, they're going to be more, empathetic towards you as a leader, as well as help to provide solutions to the situation, and just be like thankful that they're included in that kind of conversation, because I don't think companies really include their staff and employees in these conversations. A lot of times, like, well, it's just for the management team, and we do have management team meetings, but really we trickle that stuff down pretty quick.
And so you should. I think that's great. And I know that is there a specific piece of software that you use to keep like I had mentioned that we send out a survey every 2 weeks. It's a piece of software called Tiny Pulse, which is all about employee engagement, and it allows us to kind of continuously gather that information. Do you use a piece of software, or do you just have it done manually with your team?
Yeah, we use this software. Actually, they're based out of Montreal, called Office Vibe.
Oh, yeah.
And I just, again, most of what I've learned from other business owners, and I have to credit to them. I'm really standing on their shoulders, and I, steal little bits of pieces of it, of best practices. And that was one we installed about maybe 4 years ago now. And it's, every week, they get a different people get a different question, anonymous feedback capabilities. And then you've got, historical,
Yeah.
or net promoter score rankings for different aspects. It's real. And then, how to act, or say, hey, one of our team leads is like, hey, your team's not feel like they're not getting the feedback that they would like, the frequency.
Yeah.
You can step that up, and that's valuable information, but they wouldn't know that. I wouldn't know.
And the fact that it's anonymous is a huge thing. And, you're continuously gathering that data. And, it comes, like you said, this is stuff that you as an owner would never have seen. And the other thing we find about this, and I'm sure that software does the same thing, is that it benchmarks you against people in your industry, against people of your size, and it shows you where you stand as far as this goes. And I'm sure as Great Places to Work, we're all, because I know that we are, so that means we all are, certainly above the Mendoza line, that, that we are all operating at a very high level. Mm-hmm. And listen, this has been, like I said, I could go on like this forever, but I really wanted to leave the last word, and she doesn't know I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it, is, we've got Mel on this call who works for a company, is entirely focused on employee engagement. And, Mel and I have a great relationship. She knows she can say whatever she wants. Where other people
not whatever I want, but within,
mostly whatever she wants without getting fired. Yeah, because that's not what I do. But like, let's hear from somebody who actually works in an organization that has been on the Great Places to Work, and that is in employee engagement. What's the experience been like with you, Mel? You've been with PACE for 2 years, I think, right now. At this point, right?
Pretty much a little bit over 2 years now, and like from the moment of just joining the team, I've recognized that I'm working alongside other great hires. Like, I don't want to, toot my own horn here. I think I was a great hire, but I'm working with other people that you guys took the time to get to know and made sure we're a great fit for PACE and within the culture that we work with. So, I mean, whether it's our social committee or just you guys being open and vulnerable and transparent with us throughout, the years, the quarters, it's a team effort. And I'm hearing things like communication, talking to people, getting feedback, being open as a company, and everybody kind of knowing what they're contributing to the table, I think has been a great success for us, and is the reason why we're again on this list, which is so hard to get on.
All right.
And everybody is so jealous, if that's a good way to put it, of being on this list, because it's so hard. Every year, more and more companies are trying to get on and they can't. And it's because of all of these efforts that, every single one of you guys on the call are doing, within your own companies. So
appreciate that. And that's, I think that's a great place to end it on. I think that, I'm obviously very passionate about hearing this. As Kyle said, I've been knocking my microphone around because I talk with my hands. But this is something that we're all passionate about and we all find important. It's an investment of time. It's an investment of money. But it is probably singularly the best investment we have ever made at PACE, was turning this around and making all the, whatever investment we need to do in our employees, whether it's increasing our benefits, whether it's retirement funds, whether it's flexible schedules. I mean, that's the thing that COVID has done, right? It's shown us without argument that we can have exactly as productive a team remotely as we can have in the office. And people enjoyed the fact that they can work from home when they need to.
Absolutely.
So you can change that, your scheduling, to make it work. So, there's a ton of things that certainly you guys have taught me. I've got a whole list of books now I have to read. But it's been a real pleasure to talk to people who are just as passionate about this as I am. And I really look forward to kind of maybe digging into this again with a little bit of a different aspect as we move down the road. And certainly with all the people now registering for Great Places to Work, it's going to be a very interesting contest come April. And that'll be interesting. Thank you guys so much for being here. And, you know, we're going to meet on down the road. Thanks for coming.
For having us, Shell.
Yeah, true pleasure. Thank you.